And joining us now, Senator Marco Rubio, who is in Miami this morning. Senator, of course, you were one of the first candidates to win who had the backing of the Tea Party. You are not part of the Tea Party caucus in Washington, but you do know the thinking of a lot of people on that side of the street. I want to ask you, do you take seriously these dire warnings that the administration is putting out about what will happen if we don't make this deadline August 2nd?
Well, certainly the debt limit is an issue, but I think the bigger issue here is the debt. And I think what troubles me, Bob, is that no one's focusing on the real problem here. The real problem here is not the debt limit. The real problem here is the debt and a lack of a credible plan to deal with the debt. And it's not me saying it, it's the rating houses saying it. If you read the S&P report, they made it very clear that simply raising the debt limit is not enough. It needs to be accompanied by some serious effort to credibly deal with America's debt problem. And if that is not what we do, we're going to have a big problem, perhaps bigger than even anything the administration has been talking about.
Well, would you support this deal that we were just talking about with the senators just now, that Mitch McConnell is working along with Harry Reid, which basically gives the president the right to raise the debt limit and then allows the Senate and the House to vote to disapprove that, basically just a way that nobody has to take credit for raising the debt limit. Are you going to vote for that?
Not as I understand it. The way the deal is currently structured right now, it's just an ability, it gives the president the ability to raise the debt limit. But as I've said already on the program, the debt limit's not really the problem here. The problem here is the debt. The debt limit's actually the easiest part of the problem. It's one vote away from being solved. But if all we do is raise the debt limit and it's not accompanied by a credible solution to America's debt problem, we're in big trouble. And I don't believe this plan, as it's been outlined to me, is a credible solution to our debt problem.
You have been very, very tough on President Obama, and especially lately. Last week, you actually accused him of bringing the government to the brink of default on purpose. Here's how you put it on Sean Hannity's broadcast on Fox.
This is not a surprise. This didn't sneak up on us in the last couple of weeks here. We've known about this since the day I got to Washington. I've been talking about it. I think they deliberately let this thing go long because they were hoping to get to a last-minute situation where they could force us into a take-it-or-leave-it proposition like they tried to do with the government shutdown earlier in the year, like they did with the stimulus package back in February when he first took over. The reality of it is that none of these policy prescriptions the president has written has worked. Every aspect of life in America today is worse than it was when he took over. Unemployment is higher, interest rates, everything is worse.
Do you really mean all of that literally, Senator, that everything in America is worse? And I take it that it's all Barack Obama's fault?
Well, first of all, every president has to be judged by the times in which he lives. This president's now been in charge for 2.5 years. Okay, he has increased federal spending by 28%. Washington went along with his prescription for joblessness, which was the stimulus package, and unemployment is higher than it was when he took over, significantly higher. In fact, we have not had unemployment this high for this long since the Great Depression, with no signs of it getting better. Over 20 million Americans today, as they watch this program, are either unemployed or underemployed. And none of the things he said we need to do in order to turn that around have worked. As far as waiting long to deal with this, here are the facts. I came into Washington in January. We already knew this debt limit issue was upon us. Nothing happened during the State of the Union. He proposed a budget that was so ludicrous that not even the Democrats in the Senate would vote for it. A budget that increased the debt, not solved it. Months went by, weeks went by, and up until very recently, the president was completely disengaged from this debt limit debate. And I do think that in the context of politics, there was a strategy to leave this to the last possible moment so that there would be a take-it-or-leave-it scenario like what some are painting right now. And I repeat, this is not a game. This is a very serious issue. People watching at home, they don't care who's going to win this debt limit debate. They want to know how come they can't find a job. And the answer is because until America has a credible solution to its debt problem, people will be afraid to invest in America's economy and create jobs here at home.
Well, aren't you going to have to concede, though, Senator, that maybe the previous administration might have had a little something to do with the bad economy that the president inherited when he came into office? I mean, and the other part is when you say...
So when does it start getting better, Bob?
But, well, let me just ask you this. You keep saying that, this is a surprise to everybody. I mean, the Treasury Secretary has been warning for months that we needed to do something about this. I'm not sure that's factually correct for you to say that he surprised everybody.
All right, so where's the president's plan? I've never seen a piece of paper with the president's name on it that's his plan to solve this problem. I've seen press conferences. I've seen lectures that he's given to the Congress. I've seen these press avails where the camera comes in and takes a bunch of pictures. I haven't seen a plan. Where is the president's plan?
Well, where are the concessions that the Republicans are willing to make? I heard the president just this week saying, yeah, he'd be willing to talk about means testing for people on Medicare. I don't hear any concessions from people on the other side. They just say no taxes, and that's their negotiating
Well, I don't think
posture.
that's an accurate reflection. I can only speak for myself. I come from a state that has a massive number of retirees, and I've stood before cameras like this and made it very clear that if we don't do something to save Medicare and Social Security, they will bankrupt themselves and bankrupt our country, that those programs are unsustainable as they're currently structured, that we're going to lose those programs unless we do something to deal with it. I did that during the campaign, and everybody told me I'd lost my mind in terms of talking about these issues. So I think, as far as I'm concerned, and many like me, we have stepped up and talked about some of these issues that face America. I mean, Representative Ryan, Congressman Ryan, has paid a terrible political price early on this year for even offering a potential solution to some of these problems.
Well,
I'm not sure that's a fair assessment.
What is your plan to save Social Security, Senator? Are you ready for means testing and Social Security? You raise the premiums? What is it?
Well, Social Security doesn't have premiums. It has a.
You're correct. I misspoke. But
okay, on Social
what would you do?
Well, I've talked about this on the campaign. First of all, we don't have to do anything for current beneficiaries, people like my mom or people near retirement. I do think we have to look at the retirement age. I do think that people like me, I'm 40, just turned 40 a month ago, people like me have to accept the fact that there will not be a Social Security for us unless we are willing to retire a little bit later. And people in my generation are going to have to accept that. And I'm open to other people's suggestions. Absolutely, I'm open to people's suggestions because I want to save Social Security and I want to save Medicare. As far as our solutions are concerned to the overall problem, I think a credible solution to our debt problem has to have two components. It has to have budgetary reforms, in essence, a decrease in spending of at least $4 trillion or more, and it has to come with some sort of growth enhancers, something that helps grow our economy. You cannot get yourself out of this debt problem at 9% unemployment with over 24 million Americans either unemployed or underemployed.
Are you ready to say that you will not vote for anything that lets the government go into default on its debts, or are you willing to let that happen?
Well, I think that if all we do is raise the debt limit, that's exactly what we're doing. The full faith and credit of the United States is in danger if all we do is raise the debt limit and it's not accompanied by a credible plan to begin to deal with this debt issue. And it's not me saying it, it's Standard & Poor's saying it, it's the rating houses saying it. I think people, every time they cite these reports in the media outlets, they need to read the full report, because if you read the full report, they say, yes, we're concerned about the U.S. not voting to raise its debt limit, but we're really concerned about the fact that the United States and its government does not have a credible plan to deal with the debt. And the only credible plan to deal with the debt is not simply raising the debt limit. You must also have budgetary reforms put in place that show how you're going to save money, and pro-growth strategies that show how you're going to grow your economy. If we don't do that, we are in a lot of trouble.
Can you have meaningful reform here without increasing revenues in some way, closing what some people call loopholes, eliminating what others call deductions? Aren't you going to have some way to increase revenues that goes beyond just cutting taxes?
I think everybody in Washington would like to see more revenues. The question is, number one, how do you get more revenues? And number two, what do you do with it? I think more revenue should come from economic growth, and I think it should come from that because I think it's impossible for it to come from tax increases. None of the tax increases the president is proposing solves the problem. They don't raise enough money. In fact, they make it worse. They kill jobs. And by the way, I don't trust Washington because they have shown time and again that anytime they get their hands on more money, they don't use it to pay or avoid debt. They use it to grow the government. So that's what I'm in favor of. I'm in favor of more revenue that comes from economic growth, the creation of new jobs. And if you talk to job creators, not politicians, not presidents, if you talk to job creators, they will tell you that what they're looking for is a fairer and simpler tax code. So I do support tax reform, and I think there is a lot of support for tax reform in Washington. And they're looking for some regulatory reform as well, because they think these regulations that are being imposed make America a more unfriendly place to do business. When people tell you communist China is a better place to do business than America, you know you're in trouble.
Okay, well, Senator, we have to stop it there. The clock's run out. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.